Leadership, sometimes we want people to follow us, but my goal is to help other people become leaders.
What do you do as a leader to help them get out of that slump?
The leaders who can simplify that success, I think, can take their teams a long way. We talk a lot about championship habits. I think what we do every day matters.
What's your advice to your team when they've done their best but lost the game?
You have to redefine what winning looks like. When you really break it down, there's something that you can improve on. If you want to be a high performer and if you want to be somebody who wins and has success, you got to come to reality that everything matters. Consistency consists of a lot of things.
What's something that you would share with our listeners about how to not give up?
Welcome to the Leadership and Love podcast. We will cover leadership, mindset, personal development, and sales and marketing. You will experience thought-provoking conversations with both nationally and internationally recognized leaders. Our goal is to inspire you and deliver actionable items that you can implement that are going to help you accelerate your growth. Get ready to discover the magic and the power when you lead with love.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Leadership and Love. I'm really excited to have Andrew on the call this morning. He's a coach out of Florida, and he's also just on the verge. He's just about ready to finish his first book, which is on leadership and mindset. So he's the ideal guest for what we're doing here. He's also very passionate about many of the same things that I am. So I think you're in for a real treat today. Andrew, welcome, and thanks for showing up.
Yeah, thanks, Louie. It's a privilege to be on your show, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Well, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to share with the audience about your background or any of that kind of stuff, Andrew, before we get going?
Yeah, no, yeah, like Louis said, live in Sarasota, Florida. I'm the head men's basketball coach at New College of Florida. It's an NAIA program down here, and so we just wrapped up our second season in the NAIA. I'm married, have two daughters, and yeah, just really passionate about helping other people develop as leaders, trying to make an impact on them. So that, I think leadership, sometimes we want people to follow us, but my goal is to help other people become leaders and just help them find the right way to do that.
Well, thanks for that. And like I said, Andrew's going to be the perfect guest because that's what we both have, that same mindset of it. Really great leaders build great leaders. So, Andrew, to start us off, tell us a little bit about what your thoughts and philosophy around mindset and leadership are.
Yeah, so I think, I love the name of your business and everything with love and leadership. And I think in coaching, especially in the sports world, you see a lot of toughness, you see a lot of, yelling, fighting. And sometimes, people gravitate towards leadership and they think, okay, I need to be this hard guy. I need to be this person who's always yelling. And I never felt like that motivated me. And so when I was, growing up in high school and in college, I thought that love, right? I want people to be tough on me, but that love needs to come first. People say tough love, but let's love first, love tough. And so, that's kind of really motivated my entire philosophy and my mindset. And so, it's obviously a long story, a long background, but it's ultimately led me to this point about last year where this idea of win, one, one came up. The words win, like WIN, one, like the number ONE, and then one, like I won the game, WON. And basically it was just, hey, let's win every moment, one day at a time. And if we can do that, we'll have won at the end of the day. And so that's kind of been my framework and my philosophy that I've used for my team, for my life. And it's been really cool to see how that has developed. And obviously, like you said, it's going to be turning into a book here soon.
So that's fascinating. So for everybody, he said he just dropped a couple of golden nuggets in there that I want you to catch. One is, isn't it amazing how we can change our perspective? In this case, he just flipped two words from tough love to love tough. Big, big difference. When you lead with love, you have the ability to kind of drop the bomb, so to speak, and tell the truth in a way that's going to come from a place of caring, right, Andrew? Instead of being that dictator leader who rules with an iron fist.
Yeah, well, so many people wanna they wanna make withdrawals, right? Like you wanna take as leaders, we got assistant coaches, we have, our assistants, our admin people, and it's like, hey, you guys go take care of this. You guys go do it. And there's a lot of withdrawals that we make as leaders. But if we're not making those deposits into people and if we're not loving them, building relationships, caring for them, ultimately, your people under you are gonna get a sour taste in their mouth and be like, man, who is this guy? Like, why am I doing all of his work? But when they're making deposits, as a leader, if you're making deposits into somebody, you're loving them, that makes your job a whole lot more enjoyable. You bring joy to the office every day, to the gym every day, and that's the true meaning of loving tough.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, a couple of things in there. One of them is, what would you recommend for our audience? What are ways that you make deposits? This is very fascinating because I just did a solo episode where I talked about the emotional bank account, right? Where you're either putting positive stuff in or negative stuff. What's one of the things that you do to put positive deposits into the people that you work with and the people that you lead?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy answer is build relationships. Pour into people, serve other people. We talk a lot in our basketball program about love, serve, and compete. And so when I kind of take those three aspects, it's the way we show up every day. Like it's our approach. And I talk about that in my book. The winner's approach is you show up with the right attitude, the right effort, and you love people the right way. And so I think if we're looking to make deposits into people and we're looking to make an impact in their life, let's find ways to make their day better. Like ask questions, ask about their family, ask about their day, struggles, successes, and you love people and you can serve people through that. And I think that's a huge way to go and make deposits in someone's life.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I think that presence, and I love the word pouring into them, right? You have the ability to put things into them literally, mentally, physically, emotionally, and that's the power of what love does. What's one of the things that you found over the years that's important around mindset specifically?
Yeah, I mean, so much. I think there's this one idea I have, and someone told me this years ago, and it has stuck with me, and it's kind of been a foundation of my mindset and my mental toughness. But so many times, we go through life and we allow our feelings to dictate what we do. If we're tired, we're angry, we're upset, we're happy, whatever it is, right? The feelings that we have dictate our actions. We will do whatever our body's feeling or what our mind's feeling. And ultimately, that can lead to our identity, right? So if I allow my fatigue and my tiredness or my stress to dictate what I do, I'm going to be known as a crabby person. I'm going to be, always on edge. I'm going to be hard to approach. But if we flip that on its head and we allow our identity, right, who we are, this is, for me, and I don't know the listeners on your show, but I'm a follower of Christ, and so my identity is in Jesus. And when I know who I am and what I do and what my purpose is, I let that dictate my actions. And now the feelings that I have are usually, they're consistent. I'm not just wishy-washy day by day. Who am I going to be? It's like, no, I know my purpose here. I know how I'm going to impact people, and I allow that to dictate my actions. And it just changes how you feel every single day. So I think from a mindset perspective, just that idea of going from identity to actions to feelings is a lot more powerful than letting your feelings dictate all of that.
Okay, so Andrew, you're on fire, brother. So I want the audience to catch a couple things that Andrew just shared. One is, and one of the things I love for people to understand is when you're in your emotional mind, you're out of your mind. You can't reason with anybody that's in their emotional mind. And one of the things the word I'm going to use that Andrew's talking about is be. Who do you want to be as a leader? Because Andrew's talking about what's your identity? Who do you want to be in the moment, in that time of leading people? Because that's going to override your emotions. And when you're busy being, you're in your analytical mind, you're calm, you're reasonable, you're rational, and you can really figure out how to get out of that. In your mindset model, what's one of the things that you share with your young players on how to be able to control those emotions in in the moment so that they don't do it? Because we've all been there, right? We've all
Yeah.
been emotional, said something, did something, and as soon as it comes out of our mouth, we think, oh no. But you
Yeah.
can't get it back in, right? It's one of those things, you can't reel it back in. So what's one of the things you share with your players and other people on your team that and how to control that so that they don't let their emotions run away with them.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's important to understand that I think as leaders, we do need to show some grace, right? We're not perfect as leaders, and we have to understand that the people we coach or the people we lead aren't perfect. And so there are going to be mistakes made, and people are going to react in ways that probably aren't good. And so it's easy to react and get mad and get, hey, like you can never do that again, right? And I think that there's a time and place for those conversations, but we have to be smart as leaders and use common sense to understand when those moments are. But one thing we talk about a lot in our team, and I talk a lot about with our coaches, is this difference between reacting and responding. I think reactions are uncontrolled a lot of times. It's something happens to us and I flip out. You know, a bad call was made in the game and I get mad at the referee, or I turn the ball over and I put my head down, right? These reactions are, kind of involuntary sometimes. And so we talk so much about, hey, you have to be intentional. And the only way to be intentional is with a response. I think responses are intentional. That's something that you can control. And so now when a bad call is made, you can say, okay, like bad call was made, but I'm going to move on to the next play. Okay, I just turned the ball over, didn't go my way, but I'm going to keep my head up. I'm going to sprint back on defense, and I'm going to go get the next one, right? And so this difference between reacting to a circumstance and responding to a circumstance is one way that we talk about over and over and over. Control what you can, and so that's really a big thing that my players probably get tired of me talking about, but it's so important. Like, hey, respond, don't react. Move on to the next play.
Again, Andrew, you're on fire. So again, for the audience, I want you guys to understand what he's saying. And in that case, and those are great examples, right? Those are great analogies. When you turn over the ball or you make a bad pass and it's stolen, that you have in that moment, you have the ability to either react or respond. One of the things I'd like for our listeners to realize is that this is the power and the importance of deciding who you're going to be as a leader and how you want to show up, right, Andrew? Because before the ball's stolen, before the ref makes a bad call, you have to have already decided who you want to be in that moment, how you're going to respond. Because if you wait for the moment, it's too late. Now you're in your emotional mind and everybody's off to the races. And we've watched guys like was it Bobby Knight from Indiana, right?
Yeah.
Throwing chairs on the court and doing all those kind. That's not the way to lead young people or anybody as far as that goes. But he was always in that reaction mode, not responding. And that's a very powerful lesson for everybody here. And you can't always know. So let me ask you this, Andrew. We can't always know what's going to happen. What are you sharing with your players and your coaches when something happens that you couldn't predict, and how do they treat that?
Yeah, so we make a big deal about our processes and our systems. I actually use this with our team this week. We had them set their goals, right? Like everyone, you kind of want a vision, a purpose. So, hey, I want to be conference player of the year, or I want to do this, I want to do that as individuals and as a team, right? But a lot of people set goals, and the problem with that is that, like you said, they don't always go your way. It's something you want to achieve, but it doesn't always work how you want it to. And so I had them go to the next step of, okay, now, right, what are the things that will lead to you accomplishing those goals? If you want to score a certain amount of points, we have to break that down and, okay, I have to shoot this many shots. I have to make 200 shots a day or 200 free throws a day, or I have to make this many sales calls a day, right? If we relate it to business, those are things that lead to those goals, that lead to winning. But then we have them break it down even further. And I think this is where that true magic happens is when you put systems and processes in place. So, okay, when things go tough and I'm in a slump and I can't make a shot to save my life and I feel like my confidence is slipping, what processes have you gone through? The affirmations you speak in your mind, the discussions you're going to have with the coach, the questions you're going to ask. Like we really try and help our guys put a plan in place so when they do get punched in the mouth, they can say, "Hey, I've already been here. Like I understand what I need to do. I'm prepared for it. I have a plan." And so they're not caught off guard. And I'm not saying that makes it any easier, right? You still have to go through things, but when you have a plan and you've prepared a process to attack that, I think it makes it a lot easier and it kind of helps things stay on track and keeps your consistency at a high level.
Man, so thank you for sharing that. And again, for the audience, I want you to catch what he's sharing. It's very, very, very powerful. Him and I are like brothers from different mothers because we both are huge process guys and we're both huge in leadership and love. But one of the things I want you to catch that he just shared is this, and that is the importance of having processes on what you do on a regular basis. And one of the things he used shots. He said, I can't make a shot to save my life. Have you been in a sales slump? Have you been in a leadership slump? Of course you have. It's part of the deal. It's part of the challenge of this thing called life. But when you have a process, you just pick yourself back up and start going again. Andrew, I just recently saw a YouTube video about Caitlin Clark. For those of you that don't know, Caitlin Clark set the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association, on fire the last couple of years because she could just put the lights out, right? She could shoot from anywhere on the floor. She's a great team player, great passer, the whole shebang. But she either her or somebody was interviewing her, and she basically was saying that every day, to your point, Andrew, every day she takes 100 three-point shots. She takes 100 free throws, right? Every day. And so when you find yourself in a slump, or like Andrew said, when you've been punched in the mouth, figuratively, not literally, and sometimes it might be, but you really want to pick yourself up, and the way you pick yourself up is get right back to your processes, right? Because he said a bunch of powerful things. Affirmations. What are you telling yourself when you're in a sales slump? What do you tell yourself when you're dry spell and you can't hit a shot to save your life? It's you get back to the basics, right? Isn't that accurate? And so what's one of the things that you share with your players, Andrew, when they find themselves in a slump, and what do you do as the leader to help them get out of that slump?
Yeah, well, I think you said a great word, get back to the basics, right? And we talk so much with our guys, don't get bored with the basics because especially as you advance and, the season's going long or like you relate it to business and like you're getting deeper into a project, deeper into stuff, things can get really complicated. And then when things don't go well, sometimes there's just a lot going on in your mind. There's a lot going on uh trying to just regain your focus. Man, where do we pick up again? Where do we start? And like there's just a lot of complexity that's involved with it. And so I think not getting bored with the basics is super important. And I think when, our players are struggling or they're in a slump or they're having a bad day and it's like, hey man, just take a deep breath. Like what got you here? What are the fundamentals that got you here? You don't have to do everything for everybody. Like what's the one thing that you can focus on right now to kind of get that confidence back? And relating it to basketball, like if we have a good 3-point shooter and he just can't make a 3-point shot, sometimes it's, hey, like you need to facilitate and like just make a great pass, like go rebound, go get one rebound and get that confidence back, or go get fouled and shoot a free throw because those are a little bit easier. And it's like sometimes we make things so hard on ourselves that we forget what got us there, and just kind of recentering ourselves, reframing our perspective of the current situation is so important. And I think that's, as leaders and coaches, that's one of our main tasks is we have to take really hard things, really complex things, and we have to simplify them. And, the leaders who can simplify that success, I think can take their teams a long way.
Again, you're speaking so much wisdom. So he said a couple of things in there. One, there's a great book called The One Thing, and so he's dead on. When Andrew's talking about, what's just one thing you can focus on today and get back to the basics. And that reminds me of two things, two coaches, Andrew. Vince Lombardi built a championship football team. He said, well, all we're going to do is focus on the basics, right? Blocking, running, tackling. And then John Wooden, I don't know if you've read any of his stuff. Great stuff. And one of the things he taught his players is how to tie their shoes,
Yeah.
right? And it's the little things. And what's the one thing? And it could be a little thing that you can get back to today to get you back on track when you've been derailed. And life finds lots of ways to derail us, right? What's one of the things when your players or coaches are going through emotional challenges, what's something that you share with them around mindset to get them back to the positive and out of the negative?
Yeah, I think, we talk a lot about championship habits. I think what we do every day matters. And, you mentioned John Wooden, and one of my favorite coaches. I may have read all of his books. If there's one out there that I haven't read, I need to go find it because I absolutely love his wisdom. But um, I think little things do matter, the details matter, and we always tell our guys, little by little, a little becomes a lot. And that can be for good or that can be for bad. And so I think when we start, getting into these emotional roller coasters and we're trying to figure out, man, I need to get this figured out. Let's go back to our habits. And like I referenced, we refer to them as championship habits, just trying to make sure we understand this is how a champion looks. This is how a winner looks. This is how we approach things. Because it's not just a small detail. Like these are small things, but they lead to big things. And so little by little, little becomes a lot. What am I focused on? And how is that going to compound to the next thing? Because if it's a negative, emotional situation, and I just keep telling myself, I'm not good enough. I can't be the best player. Like coach is always mad at me. I can't get these sales done. I can't do it, right? You speak negative to yourself. Every one of those little thoughts is going to compound and eventually it's going to snowball into you being a wrecking ball. But it can also be flipped on its head. And if I'm saying, okay, like just one more, like, hey, that was a great rep. I need to do one more. That was I didn't make the sale on that call, but I felt like I had a good relationship and I'm going to go get the next one. You have those little thoughts in your mind. Eventually, again, that's gonna change how you feel. And it kind of goes back to that mindset approach of, knowing your identity. If you know, hey, this is okay. I'm good. We're gonna figure this out. It's gonna lead to your next action. And so just understanding that, every detail matters and it is going to compound into something. What that something is a decision and a choice that we have to make. And so, it's all kind of connected to responding the right way, knowing who we are. And, when you kind of figure that out, you know, success takes off.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And again, one of the things that Andrew's talking about, truly another golden nugget, is just that. You know, it's 10 push-ups every day. It may not seem like a lot, but 10 push-ups done every day over a year is going to affect change. And you might not see it in a week or a month, but over time it's going to impact. And that's the power of your thoughts. I think you hit something very powerful, Andrew, and that is that, that first negative thought, it's easy to roll it into the next negative thought, right? And then the next negative thought and the next negative thought. And anything that you can come up with to break that chain of negative thoughts is gonna change the game. Literally, the game of life, the game you're playing in, whatever that may be. And I think it's all a game. I think everything that we're doing is a game. I think life's a game, sales is a game, and it's really important. What's your advice to your team when they've done their best but lost the game?
Yeah, it's tough, right? When you put everything out there, you've prepared the right way, you approach the day the right way, your attitudes were great. Like sometimes you just get beat. Sometimes you're just not good enough, and those are tough. But I also think that we have to redefine what winning looks like. It's super easy, especially at the college basketball level, to say, okay, my win-loss record is not what it needs to be. And it's very quick for people to say, you guys stink and you're not good enough. You're a bad coach. You're a bad player because they're defining winning by wins and losses. And that's a really important part of the puzzle. Don't get me wrong, right? You can't be a successful salesperson, successful business person, coach, athlete without performing at a high level. But if we put all the pressure on ourselves for the outcome and what that scoreboard says at the end, mentally it's going to drain us, it's going to burn us out, and we're ultimately probably going to start doing things that we regret because you know, win whatever it takes, right? Win at all costs. And like, I don't think that's a healthy perspective. So we try and just redefine that scoreboard. And yeah, it's still going to hurt when we lose and we played well, but we look at our attitude, our effort, the focus we had, our preparation we had. And if we can check those boxes off and say, you know what, we felt pretty good about what we did, you just move on to the next one. You flush it and you move on. But typically what I've found too is when you really break it down, there's something that you can improve on. And so you don't let that, fester and hurt your mindset too bad, but you can say, you know what, like for us this season, right? We lost 6 games by one possession or less. It drove me crazy. I'm still kind of upset about it to this day. But, we had a 14-win season, but we had 6 games that we lost by one possession. We could have had a 20-win season this year. And so I sit back and like, yeah, we played really well in those games, but okay, what can we do to get better? What do we need to fix? And it's something I can't get upset about and I can't get like super mad about, but it's something that we need to really jump on and be like, okay, we have to grow up in these areas. And we have to make sure that next time when this happens, we're ready for it. Because consistency is so powerful in that, right? And most of the time we can look back and say, it was just this one or two things we did wrong that led to that loss. It's not like we're awful at what we're doing. It was just one or two things. So how can we be more consistent to win that next play and go get the job done next time?
Again, Andrew, man, you're just pouring out all kinds of great wisdom. So he had a bunch of stuff in that response as well. A couple of things I want the audience to catch it. The first thing is that in everything, there's always the opportunity to learn, grow, learn the lesson, and really sharpen the saw, as Stephen Covey says in the Seven Habits. And so that's what he's talking about here, is that, what could we do better? Here's something else that I want you to catch that he just alluded to. And if you want to expand more on this, Andrew, I'd appreciate that. But I learned a while back that the horse that wins $1 million is sometimes only a nose better, right? And so if you've lost a basketball game by one possession, basically 2, 3 points, you didn't lose by a ton. So you don't want to throw away all the stuff that's working. You want to be really, really careful when you're that close to succeeding or accomplishing your goal. You don't want to throw what's the old saying? You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You don't want to throw everything out the window because you lost a game or you didn't make the big sale. You got to keep those basics and the things that are working in place. Andrew, what's one of the things that you would suggest to leaders on how to assess that situation? So, and I love that you've got this great clarity around these 6 games by one possession. What's something that you would suggest for leaders to go look at a situation and try to determine, what do they have that's working, and how do they find the thing that they can tweak to make it better?
Yeah, I think, perspective is key. And while on one hand, right, we say, hey, we did do a good job. Maybe we did plenty, but there was these one or two possessions that we didn't do. The sales calls, the day. I think it's really important to not not lose too much sleep over what you didn't do well. But at the same time, if you want to be a high performer and if you want to be somebody who wins and has success, you got to come to reality that everything matters, right? And I think our approach is so important. So most of the time I can, you put your finger on these one or two possession. It wasn't just one or two, like we lost by one possession, but there was a lot of things we didn't do well. And it typically is something to do with our reaction or response, right? We allowed something to bother us a little too much, and then it led to a negative. And at the time, in the moment, it's kind of easy to shrug off, right? Like maybe in a basketball game, we were winning by 8 points, and then we let our guard down a little bit, we turn the ball over, we make a mistake, the other team scores. Now we're only up by 6, but we're still winning, right? Things are still going good. And I think that's an easy mistake to make as leaders and high performers is, you know what, it's okay, like we're fine, and like not really allow it to get you better. You got to understand everything matters. And so holding yourself accountable, holding your team accountable to a standard is really important. And I'm guilty of this. This is something I'm learning as a young leader too, is in practice, right? Like sometimes I don't feel like things are a big deal, or I don't want to waste time. I don't really want to go there with my team because I'm like, we don't have time for this. Maybe it's not important. And then a week down the road, right, that exact situation comes up and it's like, shoot, I probably should have called that out in practice. I should have held them accountable to it. And so, when you realize how big the details are, you realize there's no such thing as a small detail. Like they all are big things. And so I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like I was kind of talking around it, but that just getting that mentality of nothing is too small. Like I have to take everything with the same approach. And, I can't have a bad moment or a bad day, with the understanding that you will, right? Perspective, but like finding ways to be as consistent as possible. I hope that made
Yeah.
sense. Kind of
It makes perfect sense. I had a mentor tell me a long time ago that if you take care of the little things, the big things take care of themselves,
Yeah.
right? And I think that goes back to John Wooden's example of teaching them how to tie their tennis shoes. That you
Yeah.
got to take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. You've also been you've been all over this other topic that, and I know it's something that's in your forthcoming book, which we'll talk about with the audience before we get off the interview today. But I'd like you to talk about, because you've alluded to it a number of times, and I'd like you to explain to the audience the power of the present moment, and once it's gone, it's gone. Let it go.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, my book, it's pretty much win every moment every day. Like that's the first step. And that's something for me, personally, I've always struggled with because especially when I was first getting into coaching, over a decade ago, I I saw like I wanted the next thing, right? I wanted the next job. I was trying to be a Division 1 coach. I just let so many things slip me by. We were having kids, and I was just like basketball was everything to me. And I felt like I was pursuing something big, something greater, but I was just missing these moments. And then I'm wondering, well, why am I not getting success? Why am I not, able to obtain these, accolades that I want to obtain? And it took me several years, but the older I get and the more mature I get, the more experience I have, man, you do realize the power of these moments. And so, yeah, in the new book, that's kind of the foundation of it is that if we want to have won the day, we have to win the moments. And that's every touch point you have throughout the day. It's the way you wake up. It's your morning readings. It's how do you interact with your kids? It's, at a restaurant, how are you interacting with the waiter? Like, and it's hard. I'm not saying any of this is easy. It's a very simple thought, but it's a very complex thing and it's hard to add. It's easier said than done. But winning the moment is so important. And I think if we can approach every day with saying, all right, when I talk to this person or when I go do this next thing, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And it may only take 5 seconds, it may only take 2 minutes, but I'm going to win that moment. And when we continue to do that day after day after day after day, success is compounded. And I think it's important to understand like anybody can be good for a day, anybody can be good for a week, but in order to sustain success and really have that excellence that takes you to the next level, it's all about winning the moments every day, one day at a time. And that consistency is powerful.
Amen, brother. He's preaching it, and again, I don't want you, the audience, I don't want you guys to miss what he's talking about here. Is that it's the little things, it's every moment that matters, and he said he used the word compound. My word's exponential. Doesn't matter. They mean exactly the same thing. When you start piling these little things up day in and day out, day in, at some point it exponentially grows, and you can. I'll share something with you, Andrew, and I think that this is going to be very apropos for what we're talking about. And sports is a great example. And I'm a musician, and I played sports. I'm still active and ride a bike and lift some weights and do that stuff. But I do nothing competitive anymore, and it's in sports. But I play the guitar, and sometimes much like in sports, much like in your sales, much like in every walk of life, every aspect of life, it seems like we go along, and then we hit a plateau, and our shooting doesn't get any better, and our passing doesn't get any better, or our ability to play a particular chord progression, or our ability to close more sales. It seems like we go along and we just hit this plateau. But what you were talking about that I think is huge is that whether it's your athletic sports skills and ability, or whether it's playing a musical instrument, whether it's your sales, whether it's your leadership skills and ability, you keep going at it and you're going to have that next rise, right? You're going to have the next rise in to the next level. And then you might hit a plateau again, but that compounded effort that will exponentially get you growth. Because when you go up, sometimes those steps or those leaps are huge, right? But you lived at this plateau. And I think that, and man, I just want you to know I'm so grateful that you showed up as you, because isn't this the truth? Some people, leaders, athletes, musicians, it doesn't matter what walk of life, we hit that plateau and often we quit, or often we give up, or often we let go of the routines, the consistency, the habits, the mindset that it got us to this plateau. And the moment that we let that stuff go, there's only one place to go when you start letting go of those fundamentals, the basics, right? This is just a rich conversation. I just want to make sure everybody gets this. When you've reached a plateau, you've got to keep working. You've got to keep going, because if you don't, there's only one place to go, and that's going to be where? Back down. Back down to the last rung on the ladder. And so what's something that you would share with our listeners, that you share with your team and your coaches about how to not give up?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. And I think James Clear, he's an author, wrote Atomic Habits. He talks about these breakthrough moments. And it's kind of in this context of getting 1% better, right? That gradual, success story. But these breakthrough moments, and I think it's what you're talking about, like, we want things to happen fast. And we live in a society and a culture where everything's at our fingertips. If I want to know something, I can Google it. If I need to see what's happening in the world, I go on Twitter or X or Instagram, right? And I scroll and scroll and scroll, and I get my fix of what I need, and then I'm out the door. Okay. And I think society has just brainwashed us to want things to happen fast. And if I don't get what I want fast, I move on to the next thing, right? Unfortunately, in business, in sales, in athletics, it's not how it works. It's not how life works. And so being able to push through the adversity is hard. It's hard. I mean, you kind of have to address it and hit it head on. Like, this isn't going to be easy, but you got to have the right mindset. And I think just continuing to preach persistence and perseverance is huge. And I think one way to do that, because it takes some time, and I think we need to get really good at calling people up instead of calling people out. I think when people aren't seeing the success they need, most of us are wired in a way that we dwell on the negative and we criticize and hey, you need to do this better. And if you do this better, you're going to get this, right? But like, let's call people up. Let's find the good in people and catch them winning. So even if they haven't reached where they want to go yet, and they haven't hit that milestone, when they are doing something that leads to it, right? Those attributes, those things that lead to winning, like, we have to be really good as leaders and as coaches to say, that's how you do it. That's a great job. You need to continue that. Put that into your system. If you put that into your process, man, I think that's really going to level you up. And the more that we can catch people winning, the more they're going to do it, right? What gets praised gets repeated. And I think
Wait,
when
well,
we're
stop,
just
stop,
trying,
stop. Wait, stop. I got to interrupt you. Say that again.
yeah, so what gets praised gets repeated. It's like, for me, I'm one of my love languages is affirmations, right? When people tell me I'm doing good, and hey, like, coach, that I love that you did that. The way you handled that situation, like, great game. Or hey, I love my wife when she says, hey, I love when you helped clean up. Like, I love when people tell me I'm doing good. And I don't like attention. And so sometimes I like act like I don't, but I know that truly it means a lot. And when people tell me, hey, you did a good job, like, keep that up, guess what? I go do it again, and I do it better. I try and find a different way. And so what gets praised gets repeated. And I think when we're struggling to find those breakthrough moments, if we're just dwelling on those negative things, it's easy to quit. But when you kind of have that hope and that belief, and, people in your corner saying, keep going, you're doing great. I mean, that's how I get through breakthrough moments. That's how I find my way. And, like we talked about, eventually it's going to compound into something big.
Yeah. Again, very, very, very wise for such a young man. And again, what gets praised gets repeated. I want you to, if you're listening to this and you have children, I want you to really let that thing sink in. If you're a leader of anybody, which we all are, what you praise is going to get repeated. And beating somebody down, yelling at them, screaming at them is not going to ever get what you want. It's going to get you just the opposite. So one of the things that I think is very powerful that you talked about, Andrew, in that, again, is what and who's around you. Because what Andrew touched on is when he's down, the people around him will lift him up. but they got to be the right people around you, right? Everybody's. I shouldn't say everybody. I don't want to make an assumption, but most people have heard you're the accumulation of the five people you spend the most time with. And so Andrew just touched on something. If nothing else, and Andrew's given you lots of things. One of the reasons why I created this podcast was for you as leaders to take one thing away from this. One of the things that you might take away from it, and he's given you lots of great things to take away from it that you can put into action today. One of the other things I would add is take account of who you're hanging out with. And when the proverbial stuff hits the fan, are they lifting you up or are they dragging you down? And it's the have you heard the story about the crabs in a bucket? If
I
if
think I've heard something similar to that, but
yeah, where there's if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket and one of them gets close to the top to climbing out, the other crabs will pull him down. You don't want to be you don't want to be in that bucket. So who's in your bucket? You want to be in a bucket with people that are going to push you up and help get you over the edge. So Andrew, this has just been a wonderfully refreshing, powerful conversation. Before we go, is there anything I haven't asked that you'd like to talk about or share with our listeners?
no, I mean, I think I've loved hearing your expertise as well. I think one thing that I would just encourage everyone to do is the word that I've been focused on so much, and it's been impacting my life so much, has just been consistency. And I've always struggled with that, with just discipline, being engaged in everything I'm doing. And I've noticed that the more I want to be consistent, it I need to get my eyes off of myself. It's really easy to just focus on, okay, what do I need to do today? How do I get this done? How do I become consistent, right? But consistency is something that is born out of relationships. It's born out of how we lead other people, how we love, how we serve, how we compete. And it's something that I would probably be a whole nother podcast episode we could talk about. But I'm just learning that consistency consists of a lot of things. And so love people, go out of your way to serve people. And it doesn't have to be big things. Please, thank you, hold the door for somebody. Compete for each other. I think especially as leaders, we're oftentimes trying to get the upper hand. We're trying to be the best. We want the boss to see us, but like, don't compete against, right? Like, try and be the best, but don't compete against and bring other people down. Like, compete for each other, because the truth is, whether you like it or not, is when the people around you are better, it makes you better. And so even if someone has the upper hand on you right now, or they have the boss's attention, or they're making more sales, be in their corner, right? Call them up, praise them, because ultimately it's going to make you better, and it's going to make your game rise. It's going to make you more consistent. And ultimately, when you have people who kind of work that way, is, hey, call me up, and now, okay, I want you better than me, and then I got to get better than you. Like, that's powerful. And I think the best teams, the best organizations, companies that I have seen, that's who they are. That's who they are at the top. That's who they are with their everyday employees. And when you have people around you who call you up rather than out to bigger things, it leads to consistency, and it leads to a lot of power. So that's one thing I would just encourage people with here as we kind of close out.
Thank you very much. So the other thing that I asked before we get off a call is, if you could recommend one book to our readers, what's one book that you would recommend to help improve their leadership in this and mostly our topic today, mindset?
Man, it's a great one. One book that has really impacted me lately, and it's not really a leadership book per se. It is, but it's a different kind. It's called In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day. It's by Mark Batterson. I don't know, but it basically just it talks about attacking every moment, attacking every day, having courage, not being afraid. And it has just, I've read it honestly probably four times now, but it's always relevant. It's always a book that has piqued my interest and given me a different perspective and thought process on certain situations going on in my life. So, yeah, In a Pit with a Lion on a Snowy Day by Mark Batterson.
Thank you. I've never heard of that book, so I'm going to go check it out and get myself a copy.
Awesome.
So before we go, how can people connect and reach out to you?
Yeah, so my handle on social media is at Coach Wingreen. So Instagram, X, can connect with me a lot on there. I'm pretty active. And then I have a website, coachwingreen.com. And on that website, it talks about my speaking, some resources, some PDFs that you can get in touch with, and then you can also contact me through email on the website. But those would be the two ways to connect.
And that's Wingreen spelled Wingreen, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, and
Win
so
like win the game, and green like the color.
yep. And so we'll also put all your contact information in the meeting notes when this airs. And then one more time, would you do me a favor and share the title of your forthcoming book, and where could people go to get an advanced copy of that or pre-order it?
Yeah, so the book is called Win One One, and it's going to be the attributes that lead to winning. So as we want to be high performers, and we want to, everybody wants to win, but not everybody knows the things that lead to winning. And so it's a fable, it's a story, but we go through a basketball player's life and a coach who impacts him and is in his life, and just kind of go through all the frameworks and philosophies of Win One One. And so that will be available for pre-order probably this summer. I don't have an exact date yet, but if you follow Coach Wingreen on those social media accounts or stay tuned to the website, we'll definitely post those links, and would definitely appreciate anybody to go pick that up, because I think it's going to be an impactful philosophy that you can really take with you in any area of life.
Well, thank you. After listening to you again today, there's no doubt that it's going to be a powerful book, because you just have such great wisdom and such really applicable skills that people can put into place immediately. Thanks again so much for taking your time. And again, for our listeners, I'd like to invite you to think about, and again, this is another one of the episodes where I highly recommend you go back through this and listen to it a couple times, because he just shared so much great wisdom. Again, Andrew, thank you for your heart. Thank you for how you're showing up in the world, and God bless you for all the work you're doing, and appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks, Louie. Appreciate you, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks again for joining us and listening to this episode of Leadership and Love. I would like to challenge you to ask yourself, what's one thing that you heard today that you can implement immediately to improve your leadership and accelerate your growth? If you've gotten value out of this episode or learned something that you can implement today, we'd ask that you please share it with those that you care about. Our goal is to create more leaders who are leading with love.